take a good look at this image. It's almost 3 o'clock in the morning on May 24th, 2025. 3 tiny dots cut through the darkness over Tokmak, a Ukrainian territory occupied by the Russians. What you're seeing are not birds. They are 3 Ukrainian drones approaching one of the most valuable targets of the Russian war machine. This train you see in the footage. It carries 560 tons of fuel. That's enough to supply 2 Russian battalions for an entire week. Now, notice how the locomotive shines in the dark. That's its thermal signature. That's how drones see their targets in the darkness. This train is a logistical asset worth millions of dollars, and it's about to be attacked by equipment that costs less than an iPhone. In exactly 87 seconds, it will turn into a 200-meter-tall column of fire. But here's what makes this truly extraordinary. We're not talking about million-dollar missiles. We're talking about drones built with parts that you often find on the internet. Each one of them is worth something close to $1,600. And what happened here wasn't luck. It was a demonstration of what's to come in the future. See how the fire spreads quickly from car to car. The very design of the train, which was engineered for maximum efficiency, now turns against the Russians. The result? A vital supply artery for Russia was completely paralyzed for weeks. But what you just saw now is only the tip of the iceberg. And I'll show you the reason. It all starts with something that could even be a joke if it weren't true. That's because Ukraine created an entirely new air force without conventional fighter jets. They turned Chinese commercial drones into devastating military weapons. And at the center of these operations is DJI Mavic 3, a regular drone that you can buy on Mercado Libre for about 40,000 reais. But here's the irony that few people noticed. Ukraine's military capability depends on the decisions of the manufacturer of this equipment. In other words, it depends on a Chinese company. Now, consider this. DJI stopped manufacturing the Mavic 3. All the units that have reached the battlefield now come from the remaining stock. Imagine if your country's defense depended on a foreign tech company and the decisions it makes about which product to manufacture. There was another problem. The replacement, the Mavic 4, is considered too complex for ordinary soldiers. This forced a massive adaptation throughout the Ukrainian military system, which was built around the simplicity of the Mavic 3. Now I need to say something. The Mavic 3 that you see on the battlefields has been modified by the Ukrainians. They're not the same as what you would buy in a store. They equipped it with a 20-megapixel Hasselblad camera with 28 times hybrid zoom. Some experimental versions can achieve up to 56 times digital zoom. Selected units were retrofitted with thermal cores that allow thermal recognition and heat detection at night. These drones fly at 68 kilometers per hour, with a flight time of up to 46 minutes, operating at altitudes of up to 6,000 meters above sea level. But most importantly, they were modified with software that allows them to evade Russian detection systems that normally track DJI drones. Okay, now that you know the main characters in this story, let me tell you how this operation worked. It's impressive. 5 drones worked in perfect coordination. A DJI Mavic 3 reconnaissance drone was hovering 8 kilometers away, providing real-time thermal imaging. 3 attack drones built by the Ukrainians themselves carried out the precise strikes. A 5th drone was kept in reserve in case something went wrong. But during the operation, when they were about 3 kilometers from the target, something unexpected happened. A Russian electronic warfare system called LIR-3 detected the drone's signals and started trying to bring them down. This system, mounted on a Kamaz truck, can jam global positioning system and drone control signals within a 30-kilometer radius. The Russian operators first tried a broadband jamming, transmitting high-power noise on several frequencies at the same time. When that failed, they switched to spot jamming, focusing intense interference on the 2.4 GHz band used by commercial drones. But the Ukrainians already knew about this and prepared for this scenario. Their drones use frequency hopping technology, changing frequency hundreds of times per second across 3 separate frequency bands simultaneously. This makes it almost impossible for Russian jammers to lock on to the signal. The primary data system distributes the signal across multiple frequencies, changing patterns up to 1,200 times per second. This makes it extremely difficult for Russian forces to detect or effectively jam it. The Russians then tried to spoof the global positioning system, sending fake satellite signals to confuse the drone's navigation. But the Ukrainian drones detected the inconsistency between the global positioning system data and the actual movement, automatically switching to backup inertial navigation. Inside the drone's guidance computer, accelerometers and gyroscopes kept measuring every change in speed and direction. This inertial measurement unit provides backup navigation that cannot be jammed or spoofed. Now, do you want to know something interesting? Remember the LIR-3 system I mentioned earlier? It also uses drones to conduct electronic warfare. In fact, the system controls up to 3 Orlan-10 drones for its operations. They carry jammers to suppress communication towers used by other drones. This creates a game within the game, where Russian drones try to jam Ukrainian drones, which in turn can attack the Russian drones. Ukrainian forces have already demonstrated the ability to use their own first-person view drones to hunt down and destroy Russian reconnaissance drones. Now, going back to the operation in the guidance system of the attack drones, image recognition algorithms are specifically trained on Russian railway equipment. Even without constant input from the operator, the system can identify fuel tank cars, calculate ideal impact points, and execute the final attack sequence independently. And it was then, at 2 hours, 44 minutes, and 30 seconds, that the first Ukrainian drone hit the 3rd tank car with devastating effect. The 2.5 kilo-shaped charge warhead detonated instantly on contact. On impact, the shaped charge explodes and forms a jet of metal that travels faster than a bullet, easily piercing the steel of the car. And that caused a violent explosion that instantly vaporized hundreds of liters of diesel. What happened next was a chain reaction. That's because the fuel cars are connected by ventilation systems to equalize the pressure. Those same systems that helped during normal transport now became perfect channels for the fire to spread. In just 15 seconds, the flames from the 3rd car spread to the 2nd and 4th cars. With no choice, the engineer was forced to brake the train. But that only made him an even easier target. Right after that, the other 2 drones attacked. The 2nd drone targeted the 6th car, using the smoke as camouflage. The 3rd drone attacked the rear of the train. In just a few minutes, all 560 tons of fuel were on fire, creating a 200-meter-high column of flames. And you know what's even more incredible? This wasn't a random attack. Ukrainian intelligence tracked this specific train for 72 hours. And do you know how they did that? By using local civilians with simple smartphones. These civilians, living under Russian occupation and risking their lives, identified the train's schedule, its speed, and the exact moment when it would be most vulnerable. We're talking about a window of time when the train would be away from Russian air defenses for only 15 minutes. Civilian groups like Atekim are also part of this shadow war. They are Ukrainians living in occupied territory who risk their lives every day. They go out at dawn and destroy small track control boxes, simple but vital components. When one of these boxes is destroyed, the traffic signals stop working, and for safety, no train can pass until it is repaired. It may not seem like much, but imagine you destroy a control box worth 1,000 rials and manage to stop trains carrying millions in equipment and supplies. And this causes a huge disruption for the Russians, who take weeks to arrive, identify the problem, and fix it. Not to mention that they do this in fear of suffering new attacks. It's a brilliant three-layered strategy. The civilians on the ground identify targets and carry out sabotage. The drone operators strike with surgical precision. And all of this is coordinated to hit exactly where Russia hurts the most: their ability to move troops and supplies. And do you want to know why this is so effective? Because Russia is basically an army that depends on trains, with a huge territory and bad roads, they rely entirely on 85,000 kilometers of railways to move equipment and supplies. When a fuel train is destroyed, it's not just the fuel that's lost. The railway line gets blocked for weeks, stopping all other supplies, ammunition, food, and reinforcements. This forces the Russians to use trucks, which are slower, less efficient, and much easier to attack. And recognizing these vulnerabilities, Ukraine has developed even more advanced solutions. The first of these are drones connected by fiber optic cable. They are impossible to jam because they don't use radio signals. Secondly, autonomous drones with artificial intelligence. The operator aims at the target on the screen, presses a button, and the drone goes to the target by itself, even if it loses the signal. This ability to solve problems in months, not in years like traditional armies, is a huge advantage. While traditional military complexes take decades to develop weapons, Ukraine creates solutions in weeks using civilian technology. And we saw the results of this innovation in the Ukrainian city of Tokmak. The railway line was completely destroyed. The heat melted the rails, burned the wooden sleepers, and scattered debris everywhere. Russian teams will need weeks to fix it. And that's if they can fix it without suffering new attacks. Stop and think. 3 drones that cost less than an economy car managed to paralyze one of the largest military machines in the world. This isn't just about the war in Ukraine. It's about how all future wars will be fought. As you can see, the war of the future will no longer be about massive armies, but about intelligent and adaptable systems, where a cheap drone guided by a local civilian can change the course of an entire battle. Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you think this drone revolution will forever change the way wars are fought? Or will traditional armies find ways to adapt? Leave your comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and share it with anyone else interested in military technology. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.